Meeting to order. The agenda Oromocto Council Committee meeting Monday, 17th of August, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. in the Oromocto Municipal Building. I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Councilman Winnie, seconder, Councilman Myers. Questions? All in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. We've got three presentations tonight. The first one is 3A, the public presentation of proposed municipal plan bylaw 510-G and 510-H. Dallas says that.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. I'll try to be very brief. Thank you, Your Worship, Council. I'm here tonight because of a couple of proposed amendments to the municipal plan. These are accompanying future amendments to the town zoning bylaw as well. If I can, I'll just pop up and give you a really quick overview of what these are regarding. This first one, proposed bylaw 510G, which will amend the municipal plan by creating Schedule H. What this will do will be amend what the municipal plan designation is on the grounds that currently house where we want to have the Oromocto Regional Wellness and Recreation Center. Currently, only this portion is zoned for institutional use. The rest is zoned park, which only allows like open space type uses. What this designation will do is make the entire property zoned institutional, even though it's going to be for recreational purpose and still have green area, stuff like that around the building. But this will allow us to have a larger building footprint than what the old Hubbard School was. So that's that amendment. That would be covered as well with the zoning bylaw. And on this one, proposed bylaw 510-H, a bylaw to amend municipal plan with Schedule I. This will redesignate two portions along the Sear Street extension. If you recall, we had a new alignment for Sear Street because we had a wetland over here, and so we connected it to Terry Fox. With the new alignment, it opened up more land that before was bounded by the street, but is now opened up in between the street and had been before. And this is a piece of former parkland that had been connected to the former school, but it was taken out of parkland whenever the school was sold. So this piece right now represents no real purpose to us. With the Sear Street extension, we're looking to sell these lands for multi-residential development, and this will allow those lands to be used. So because the Community Planning Act, because these were amendments to the municipal plan designation that has to be done before the zoning bylaw, the Community Planning Act requires public presentation of a proposed amendment to the municipal plan. If you recall, last month, council resolved to set that date for tonight. And we posted notices on the website to send in any comments, and to date, no comments have been received. The next step in the process will be getting the views of PAC in September, and we'll be having a public hearing of objections on these bylaws and the accompanying amendments to the zoning bylaw set for September 15th. Right now, this will be coming before you guys for first and second readings before those. But in terms of the steps in the public process for comment, it'll be going to PAC and then a larger public hearing for objections overall. This step right now is pretty much just kind of a formality. I don't think we have anyone here but staff right now, and I haven't received anything in writing to what we put up on the website. So if there's any comments, I'll take them. And
any questions or comments, Council? Councilor,
thank you, Worship. The only question I have is I did have a resident contact me who has noticed that almost every time that there is a rezoning, it always seems like it's from park to something else. And so the concern was more on green space, and the fact that, of course, we know that trees have to, come down if there's going to be development. I've explained our reforestation program, but my question is when you're planning ahead, not only in this case, but in other cases will come up later. Number one, are areas that are wooded currently zoned park, or is there a different zone called woods and so on? And secondly, as we move ahead with these different developments, what is the plan to maintain green space, but also truly parks for children and so on?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And I would say that we have a lot more land designated as park than we have parks. That makes sense. Anniversary Park, Deer Park, these are specific places with identifiable boundaries that You would go and you say, okay, I'm gonna play here, this is what it's used for. We have a lot of land. That is just, might be subject to flooding, might be wet. And we currently in our zoning have those places in areas of green space and just kind of like. But it's not really a place for a park. We have that a lot where we had a 6 meter strip. Prior to, which was gonna be left for a connection to Britain. Pedestrians from Losses Road up to Anniversary Park in the Hannah. We rezoned that out of park. Not to not have that, but to integrate that so it's within the development and not like an alley off the side that would be unsafe. Some of the stuff that we're doing is taking land that might be out of park, it might be in a different zoning. But it's not actually removing any of the areas that we use or function as park. One of the things I want to do in the next municipal plan is better designate or better differentiate areas that are just environmental sensitive, environmental conservation, and things that are, this is a park, playground, places to get, because we push them all together too much. And I would say that it's not very much that we have large, we would have some forested areas zoned residential, for example, right? Probably more forested areas zoned residential than we do park. We have a lot of wet areas zoned park. It just becomes, it's just a matter of the fact that we had a lot of land set aside and we're putting it in park designations without using it as a functional park. So when we take this out, it looks like we're removing parkland, but if we were, then there'd be a lot more controversy than there might be now. If that answers your question.
It does. Lisa, thank you. But just as a follow-up to the second part of the question, and it may be not the right question for you, it could be for Ms. Dunn, but what is that people always see new things going up, but then they wonder about the preservation of green space and actual parks like where children can play and so on. So within all of this land that's being sold and later and so on, but also within this, like what is that, like, do we have a plan in place moving forward for making sure there's recreational areas for, you know, and so on?
So actually, a lot of the times where that is, where that is implemented, and a little bit atypical for the town of Oromocto because we had been doing a lot of the development previously. But essentially in the subdivision process, so someone presents a new subdivision to me, and this has come up more in the Lincoln areas because we've been getting these ones recently, but the Community Planning Act looks, empowers us to talk to the Recreation Department and say, okay, on this proposed subdivision, we can take up to 8% of the land or 6% of the cash in lieu of land here. What do we want? So since the time that we started looking at those, when we consider those, a lot of times when you have land that we've subdivided before, can't take it because it's been taken. If it's never been taken, you can apply that. That is one way that we do that. And the other way is in with the, it's better for Jackie because it's part of the trails, part of the parks master plan and active trail plan that she's working on. But there's lots of different elements through those that we're trying to put together. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, council? Norman Buzzy? Okay. Thank you, Alice. That's awesome. We'll move on to 3B, the fire smart presentation, and Jody Price, fire chief is here. With an aide, I think.
Thank you, your worship. I have Isabel still here. Isabel's going to do most of the presentation. I'll get things started. Your worship, we're going to do you were at the presentation. I know a couple of councils were at the presentations last year. I'm going to do the presentation that we did the other night. And one thing I want to explain, council, is Isabel does her presentations on a flip chart, old school. And the reason we do that is because when we started Fire Smart last year, we looked at some of the experiences of other municipalities in the province. And they were doing things like having a Fire Smart presentation in the council chambers at their town hall or in the EOC or whatever, or meeting at the training room at the local fire hall or whatever. And what we see, like one experience Fredericton had, they had a presentation at Odell Park, and 3 people showed up, and one of them was from Keswick Ridge. That doesn't work real well, so we sliced our local bread a little different. We went out into the communities where people live. And we basically went to the roads crossed and parked and got a couple complaints that there wasn't any emergency park, but most people walked there. And we did the presentations in the communities. So we have been going around in the communities. The only one that we didn't do was our last one, which your worship was at, which was down at the fire training grounds at the old car house. We fixed that up and we did that one and we actually had, we showed up, 50 people showed up, a lot of them walked. Scooters. So that's hence why we're running a flip chart. So we take the flip chart, we go out, we sat up on the side of the road, right in the subdivision, out in Richmond Estates, we did it at the crossroads there. We set up, we had 70 show up or 75 or something like that. The Richmond Estates.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little bit bigger, so people showed up, we were barbecue, and we do it right in the community, and it's been working well for us. So, Dallas got all big fancy PowerPoints, we don't. It's- I'll hand it over to Del, and she'll do the presentation, and I'll finish off here.
So the presentation, like you said, is a presentation that I do with your communities on something that we call for wildfire community preparedness day. So we have a presentation here all about fire smarts, and these presentations are made to help inform communities and neighborhoods how to make their homes safer from wildfires, being more resilient and react. So I'm gonna first go into what is fire smart. So fire smart is actually a national program that's based on over 40 years of research. That's lab work modeling. It's really an important program that is used in all of our provinces and territories. If you guys are from the west, you may know it. It's a little bit more prevalent just because wildfires are a little bit more prevalent out west, but it's making a comeback here in the East Coast, especially with like the fires happening in Nova Scotia. We're seeing a lot of fires happening here in New Brunswick and the territories in here. So it's based off our Canadian and NFPA standards. So that means it's high standards and it's easy integration into our community. Homes that are in fires are up to 90% less susceptible to damages from wildfires. So that means that if you're following our fire smart regulations, your home is 90% safer from wildfire than if you weren't. So we really suggest you following what we're saying from Key Fire Smart. Here we have 7 disciplines of Fire Smart. We use these disciplines and Fire Smart can use these disciplines to roll out our program. Here at the Oromocto Fire Department, we're focusing a lot on education. So that's a lot on our outreach program. We do outreach by going to schools, doing our Fire Smart Friday social media campaigns. If you guys don't follow our social media, I strongly recommend it. Every Friday, we send out a fact or a fire smart tip that's very helpful and easy to integrate into your home. It can be easy as something as cleaning up your gutters twice per year. That is a great way to be fire smart. So our 7 disciplines here: education, emergency planning, vegetation management, legislation, if you guys want to look at that, development, integration, cooperation, and cross training. So like I said, we're really going to be focusing on outreach, and as we go more into our fire smart program, we'll be bridging. So while we're usually, when we're usually out in the communities, we'll tell them about why we've chosen their location. That'll be as if we're in Dexter Crescent, we're in Cary. We'll say we chose you guys locations because you're in the movie area. So that is a wildfire urban intersection. So those areas there are actually areas that are more susceptible to wildfires. So when you're living in a movie, you're either in an interface or an intersection. So in an interface here, like you see it for Oromocto West, we're seeing clear fire break between what is urban and what is forest. And here in Lincoln, you don't really see that clear break. You're seeing this urban areas breaking into the forested area. We're seeing trees all around these houses here. So that is what we call an intermix. Our interfaces and intermixes are very susceptible to wildfires because they're so close to that forested area. So these houses, these communities are going to be the first ones affected from the wildfire. We're going to say this is what a movie fire is and how it is so different. When a movie fire here starts, it's in a wildfire fire. So it's meaning these escapes our initial suppression attacks, whether the initial spark is human caused or is naturally caused. They'll escape our initial suppression attacks and move into a movie fire. That'll be in an intersection like our Richie Place or Lincoln. So once it's escaped our initial attack, and moved into our movie fire, that we'll see damages causing to areas like our Louise community sections. And then afterwards, we move further, if we can't suppress its attacks, we move further into our urban areas. So I will see a lot of areas like Oromocto, the PMQs, there'll be attacks on key areas in our community. If our attacks then escape suppression, so our wildfire is continuing on, that's where we're seeing disaster and we're being overwhelmed. We're calling in help from other communities, we're asking for help from government of New Brunswick and stuff like that. This is why we really hope to stop it here at a Louis fire by you guys all being fire smart. So making sure that your homes and your communities are doing the right acts, making sure you're doing prevention techniques to stop the fire from spreading from a Louis fire. Right. Yeah. Okay, so how can you guys be fire smart? Being fire smart is all about being preemptive. So it's making sure that your gutters are cleaned twice per year. So that's before the snow melts and after the snow melts. You're also going to be making sure that you create a defensible zone all around your home. There's a certain zone that we'll show you guys a little bit later, but it's called the immediate zone, which is 0 to 1.5 meters around your home. That zone is the most important zone, and if you follow rules, it's that 90% right there that you're gonna really want to focus on, that'll make your house that 90% safer. So in that zone, you're gonna make sure that you have non-combustible materials around your house. You're gonna make sure that your grass is kept short. If you guys have mulched gardens, take those away from your home. Those are highly flammable. You can switch it out for something like rock mulch or living mulch. Those are great substitutions that still look very pretty and do your thing for you. And you're also gonna try and make sure in these extended zones past your immediate zone is your grass gonna be kept short. You're gonna make sure that there's no fallen debris all around your home. So if you are doing some spring cleaning and you want to make sure that there's no fallen debris, like a fallen tree, maybe some fallen branches, all spread around your house, maybe along your grass, clean those all up and dispose of them in the proper place. Those are some easy ways to make sure that your house is fire smart. You're also going to try and work together with your community and your neighbors, because if two houses are safer than just with one house being fire smart. So if your whole community is fire smart, this is a great way to make sure that your whole community is safe. We're gonna get a little bit to how wildfires can be started. Wildfires can start in two ways, either human ignition, so that would be cases when maybe someone is listening to our trail bands, so they're on the trails, you're on an ATV and their ATV car started in ignition, so it started to spark. But they can actually start naturally through wildfires. That would be something like when lightning strikes, can happen in a dead area of trees. So we'll see oftentimes dead trees brought down by wildfires. And when those happen, it can actually sometimes be beneficial to that area. That's because when trees are sick or certain vegetated areas are sick, when that gets burned down, nutrients is returned to the soil. So we're seeing new tree growth, we're seeing trees that are younger, growing stronger, and we're seeing a lot of healthier area when wildfires occur naturally. But when they don't occur naturally, that's when we're seeing they spread farther, and also due to years of wildfire suppression, we're seeing a lot more material. So because we've done wildfire suppression for so long, our forests are a lot more dense. So it's a lot easier for these fires to spread farther than when they would have been initially. Here we're showing you why we were doing fire smart in New Brunswick. Like I said earlier, wildfires are becoming a lot more prevalent in the Maritimes and in New Brunswick. So New Brunswick has a landscape that's a lot more susceptible to wildfires because a lot of our communities are in more rural areas and are surrounded by forests. So that's why we've doing fire smart in Oromocto, because a lot of our surrounding areas are exactly what makes New Brunswick so susceptible to wildfires. Here we can see versus in the States in 2008. If you guys remember that same year, we had a disastrous flood. But then that same year, we also had a terrible wildfire in Richmond State. So that's a lot of resources and overwhelming on Oromocto and our surrounding areas. So making sure that we're fire smart is a great way to prevent something from this happening again. And if you guys also remember just a little bit earlier this year, we had that wildfire in Oromocto Lake. So being fire smart there is another great way to just keep that from spreading, keeping your home safe. Here I mentioned the immediate zone, which is 0 to 1.5 meters around your home. That is the one I want to stress super strongly, because that is your most important zone. So here we're making sure that debris is out of all our gutters, we have a non-combustible area around from our house. If we're having any furniture that's outside our house, so like our cushions, our chairs, we're taking those all inside or put away in our sheds, because cushions are highly flammable. So embers can travel up to 2 kilometers in front of the fire. So imagine you have a fire that's 2 kilometers away from your house, and ember can come, follow, and then say hit something on your house that's combustible and start a fire right there. So we're trying to do as much as we can to stop embers from coming to our houses and lighting up and creating a new fire. And our intermediate zone here, which is 1.5 to 10 meters from your home. Like I said, you're keeping your grass super short. You're making sure that you're taking care of your property. You're making sure that if you have any wood stack, it's out here in your extended zone. If you have any combustible material, it's being cleaned up. Also, I want to stress that if you guys have a garage near your home, or even another area of your house that you want to keep safe, or maybe another structure on your land, that itself has its own emission zone. So if you want to keep it safe, I recommend following the same rules that you do for your house or your garage. Then here in your extended zone, which is 10 to 30 meters. We do say 30 meters, but if you can put it out as far as you can go, we highly suggest it. So these are meters where you would put your combustible materials if you have to have it, like your wood pile. If you're going to have any trees, we space them out. You can't have trees in your intermediate zone, but they have to be spaced 3 meters apart and pruned properly. So when we say prune properly, we mean having a 2-meter vertical space. So from the ground to the lowest tree branch, free of any branches. That just helps prevent wildfire from spreading from the ground and then jumping up into your trees. So cleaning things like that is a great way to make sure that your house is fire smart. You can also do some swapping out into your materials. Usually when I do this presentation, I'll have a big demonstration to do afterwards, but I'll show you guys about some home materials that we often find on homes and how they'll react to fire. We usually go from fire smart to not so fire smart, starting with our metal roofing. So if you guys want to switch out to metal roofing, that fares very well during a fire. And then we go over to like our asphalt roofing, which oftentimes under 20 seconds of flame, like we do in our presentation, it'll actually melt and drip into our gutters that we have. They're full of combustible material like leaves, and like your gutters on fire. So when we use like in person, it's a great representation of that. If your asphalt roofing is near a wildfire, it'll drip down into your gutters and start your gutters. So making sure that you have metal gutters or metal mesh covers is another great thing to make sure that your house is fire smart and safer from loss. Here we have some examples of some elements of a home that are fire smart and aren't fire smart. Here we can see a clean yard. We're seeing our grass is kept clean. We're not seeing any buildup along the tree line. It was clean just after the spring. This is a pretty fire smart yard and something we highly recommend that you guys have. And then over here, we're seeing gravel mulch. We're not really seeing that wood mulch that you guys typically have around a garden. It's rock mulch, and rock won't burn. So that's why we suggest you guys have it. Here, we're seeing some of that isn't quite actually so fire smart because we see the debris that wasn't cleaned up. So this is dry grass or dry debris, and debris is highly flammable. So we really suggest you guys maintain your home and keeping it clean. Down here lower, you guys see some homes that were during certified fire smart during the 2023 Nova Scotia fires. In this home here, you can see that the garden is growing. We can see a little bit of damage right during a fire, but it has primarily survived with little to no impact from the wildfire. That is a lot due to the fact that it was fire smart certified. Over here, we're seeing a little bit of burning and then a little bit of impact on the siding, but still pretty fire smart and very well standing. Unfortunately, though, like I said earlier, fire smart homes are only 90% only. That's still a great statistic to have during a wildfire. This home unfortunately did not survive the wildfire. So like we're saying, we still want you to follow as much as you can, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So, like I talked to you guys a little bit earlier, what the Wildfire Community Preparedness Day is, here at the Oromocto Fire Department, we're really focusing on education and community outreach. So we'll do these presentations like we have now in 5 communities. I've also gone out onto the weekends or into little community events like Pioneers Days, Family Days, National Trail Days. We've done these presentations and we've done booths. So it's really give our education to the community, even if it's not in a direct presentation, we're still trying to get out there as much as possible because we really want this information out and about. So if everyone in the community is being fire smart, we're all being safer from wildfires. And then our community outreach will be our barbecue that we have, will be like these little events. Like the chief mentioned earlier, we did go to school. So being at career day for Gesner, being at Burton School, we're really able to interact and do outreach to the community and help our repertoire in our community. I'm gonna now actually just show you guys what I have handed out on your desk. Don't have one, I'm so sorry, I did not interview this many people here. So the first tab here is a guide. This is a Fire Smart New Brunswick guide that we have here. These are our versions from last year, but our brand new versions that we have this year are actually French and English, the same guide, but on the back you can see a French version, then on the front side you see the English version. If you guys grab the pamphlet that we have here, you'll see at the bottom says July 22nd for Science Club. This is what we give to people when we're going to door a week before the event happens. So that's the way we find it's best and most engaging to the community is when we go door to door. Because we'll actually be able to talk to people who want to attend, who live in those local communities. They can ask us any questions they want. We also have a pamphlet because even if they're not able to come, we still want them to get the information that we're going to be giving at the presentation. So you'll see a little bit about Fire Smart in New Brunswick. You'll see about our home ignition zone, what a wildfire preparedness day is, then how can we be fire smart. Here we're also seeing another pamphlet that we give out at our wildfire preparedness days. This too is in French and English. So we're always open and we can do. A lot of our members do speak French and English, so if you have questions, we're able to that. And then here we just have some fun things that we give away at our events, because a lot of these events have kids. So that's why we make sure that when we're doing these events in person, you're able to explore the fire truck, spray the hose, make sure you can get fun little swags, because it really is a community event. And if you get the kids involved, your parents are going to be a lot more involved too. And then here, we just have a little bit write up about fire smart, how fire smart had this summer. At the bottom here for our statistics, you can see that we had 610 points of contact over 11 events, which is pretty great for this year, only being the second year having the fire smart coordinator. So I think it went pretty well this year. And then also this thing goes into a little bit about how OFD applies fire smart.
So your worship council, in 2025, we started with the Fire Smart program. We got one student position at $10,000 to work with, and we did that again this year, which last year, some of you remember, we had Helen with her Fire Smart coordinator. Isabel stepped in this year and took over from Helen. That's been working really well. While we were in that, in the last 2 years, we were able to apply for some of the federal government funding to come down to the province. And we were able to get, I think, around $75,000 in Fire Smart funding to do our wildfire resiliency plan and do and have a look at the communities that all 4 wards. And the one thing that came out of it was they gave us basically an idea of where our hot spots were in the community for wildfire relief. There was a few in Ward 4. The town fared fairly well, as it probably would, as you know, with the way the town's built. There are a few of them like West and Gateways, and another example of a place where it's there's a few there that were identified. We have a plan now to go from, so we're working on that plan. We've applied again this year for funding for the next step of that, which is taking that to the next step, which was the more outreach. And one of the big things with that is some training and for firefighters on interface fires. And the other part of that was to develop some pre-plans and some procedures and stuff that we had specifically for certain areas. What they found out in some of the wildfires out west was when they had the one in the Slave Lake, and Fort McMurray, two totally different, things happened in those communities when they had the fires. In Slave Lake, there wasn't a lot of, the fire department went out into the subdivisions to meet the fire, extended all its resources. The fire overtook them, went into the community and built and basically went into the infrastructure and took out things like their mall, took out their grocery stores, took out their water treatment plant, took out their town hall. So then when it was time to rebuild, they don't have a town hall or so what they did in Fort McMurray, when the fire came in, they did it just the opposite. They let the subdivision burn and they went in and started protecting infrastructure. So they protected their water treatment, they protected their hospitals, their gas stations, and they have hotels, and things like that as much as they could. That's what our plan did for us. Gateway, for example, we were going to Gateway. We have two trailers in the province that we use for response through the fire marshal and DNR, and it's staffed by firefighters from across the province. And when they were deployed last year in Miramichi, the first thing they did was they went after the cell towers, protected the cell towers, things like that to keep the infrastructure up. Then when they were done, they went and protected some camps, some houses, and things like that. For us, if we were to go to Gateway and we were to bring those trailers in, if we had a fire that was on base or in one of the coming in and we knew Gateway was at risk, we'd be looking at things like Sobeys. But you know, if we were to look at that street, for example, council, the car wash would not get a sprinkler put on it. The dentist office would. Cannabis NB would not, liquor store would. So it depends on the part. They're just, the only way the liquor store got them because it's on a grocery store. You know what I mean? DQ and Wendy's would, but we would for Sobeys Fast Fuel and keep the fuel up. So you look at your infrastructure when you're going in on these things. That's what we've asked the province on the next round of funding. We want to go into those. We want to go up Susan Drive. We want to have a plan for Susan Drive. And we want to have a full-fledged plan for not only how we're going to deploy sprinkler or deploy, whatever we need to deploy it there. But if we did have a fire coming in there, like Isabel said, one of the things once we get there is we go and try to put the fire out initially. If we did have to have to evacuate people out of there because there's only so many ways out of that. That was another area that was a modern example. So we put in. So we put in for some more funding on that. We'll see if we get it. We are one of the communities that got funding on the first round, and we're hoping to get funding on the second round. Last thing I want to leave you with, I just want you to be aware that I want you to be aware as council that your fire trucks would, if we have a big incident in 2004 or 24, sorry. We had fire trucks in St. Andrews helping with the forest fire down there, or fire trucks were in St. Andrews as part of the deployment that the fire marshal, when we have fires like we had in 2024, we had the fire in St. Andrews. Last year we had massive fires both in Irish Town and Miramichi. And this year we haven't had to deploy any fire departments, but that's all managed by the Office of the Fire Marshal. So they come to us and they say, we're ready, we got deployments for Miramichi. What can you send us? So we put in our list of what we can send. We did do deployments to Miramichi last year. We did 2 deployments. We did deployment in 2024 to St. Andrews. Just want you to be aware that when your fire trucks leave this community and go to another community to protect them, we do that because what they do is they pull out of the area doesn't have a fire. So in Miramichi, the people that were going out and setting up sprinkler kits and being deployed to help the fires were not from any Miramichi region fire department, or the ones from Moncton. They were being pulled in from St. John, Fredericton, Oromocto, all the other areas of the province. If we were struggling at Gateway, you would see trucks from other provinces here helping us. That's how that works with fire marshal. So we're very careful when we do that. We were sending that last year was a pretty nasty year. When we were sending deployments to Miramichi, we actually worked with Fredericton, and we didn't deploy at the same time. Us and Fredericton. We would deploy, Fredericton would deploy. We would deploy, Fredericton would deploy. So that way that we're not deploying all of our resources at the same time. So we keep an eye on that in our own region. We make sure that our region is protected. We also, one of our big things for us, staff. We made sure that we're sending 4 people to Miramichi or 6 people to Miramichi or eight or 9 people to St. Andrews for the day. We made sure that we've got enough people here to cover. And both the career and the volunteer firefighters work with them. I just want you to be aware of that so that we are deployed. You're not, there's concern, but people will be concerned. I mean, if they will call you and ask you questions, I want you to know that we watch that at the backside. And the fire departments around here, if we are deploying to help in other areas of problems, we support each other locally here. Well, that's what I just want you to be aware of that. Any questions?
Questions or comments, council?
Good job. Okay. Isabel did a great job this year. She's heading back to Calgary on us and hope to get her back next year. She's in engineering, David, so maybe next year we can share or something. I don't know, we'll try to see. But trying to get her back as fire smart again next year, but she's got to go work in her field, right? So we'll do our best there, right? So we'll work on that. So but with that, we'll leave him.
I just have one comment though, and that was because they have now sprinklers you put on your roof, which I never seen before. There they are right there. And I'd never seen this before, and it's an incredible genius idea. You just hook it to your, your tap and you put it on the roof and then shoots away.
Two sprinklers in here. I think they're about $150-200 for this kit. Comes with everything, 2 little hoses and everything you need. That your domestic water, either on a well or the town water, will run 2 of them. You can put it on each of your home. They take around. The ones we deploy in the trailer are a commercial version of this. These are more residential. We use less water. But if you can get them up, get them going, and then grab your pads and evacuate. You can just let these things, especially in town, we don't have to worry about power run or water. You can just let them pound and they just keep everything nice and damp and then increase the humidity around your home. And hopefully things don't from beds. The other thing, my neighbors there, give Darlene a little push there, trying to get rid of my tarp mulch, trying to get in river rock, but she's pushing back. A little help there. Yeah. I know. That's one of the biggest things you do. But yeah, these are really good. So we're gonna push them again next year. We've been giving them those, get as prizes and stuff. So,
Another for what we use is they just be put up the broomstick. So you just put it up on your gutter, like broomsticks, and they're easy application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to 3C, the 5-year financial plan update with Peter Wong.
Your worship, review. It's that time of the year again, so we're gonna run through our 5-year plan is through the fall of the Brunswick budget. Today, the objective of the 5-year plan is just give you a bit of an overview. Did these the last 2 years, that's 3 years. So a little bit of an update, a little bit of what's old, what's new. Review the impact of our water rates and how that impacts our expenditures. New tax reform, so we'll take a look at that and see how what does that mean to us. And at the end, we're looking for a little bit of direction to staff's looking for a bit of direction through our budgeting process. So when we come back in October, we're present a budget that we can all execute and be happy with.
Up is down, down.
I'll stay on one up. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, just a recap, last year, we would have gone through a resolution where we talked about, the Oromocto Regional, rec center, fire trucks and infrastructure and Oromocto West, wastewater solution. So we had council approved the 5-year plan as it is and gave us some direction in terms of how to conduct our 2026 budget. So this year, we're looking for a similar resolution, similar approach. This year, we still have Oromocto Rec Center on our, on our plans, we're moving along. We're approaching a new fire station later on in our, in this 2029-2030. And we are still working away at our Oromocto West wastewater infrastructure, as well as some longer term wastewater water infrastructure as some base impacts or base growth impacts our town population. So again, at the end, we'll look for some direction, resolution to accept the 5-year plan. So just to highlight in terms of major investments, we have the 2 fire trucks. They're actually in the garage, final preparation. So we're past that line, water sewer line. So we did some work around Schooner Street Phase 1 this past year. So we'll continue that as we move into 2027 to 2030. We're now looking more clearer on the West solution. And then our community center and our fire station running out 2029, 2030 as we get through our 5 years. This doesn't really impact our budget, but there's a lot of work by our staff and engineering around these projects. We the federal capital projects. These are the projects we engage with E&D to deliver, and we're looking to refresh or rebuild the crop treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, and the refresh the infrastructure in our HE neighborhoods. So although we are applying for funding to get these 100% funded, from a budget impact, there's no real numbers, but from the labor and work needed, put a lot of work into it. It's a whole EPW crew in terms of a lot of wastewater. We do plans, so a lot of work has been done on those.
And to note too, the people that start to see that work are gonna make comments like it's taken a little extra time to get to work or get home. Cause a lot of this will have impacts just on traffic in general, and I say that from a perspective of it's all real to everybody out there, even though some of the element of that is through the CAP funding and some of it's our own doing, but it all, even to the point now where we have overpasses and bridges being redone. And that all has cumulative impact to folks. It isn't all us, but it does have cumulative impact in the areas of that.
Councilor Kirkbride?
Sorry, quick question there, just so I can't tell on a whole map or on the slide. Where is the proposed wastewater treatment plant going to be? That's just, I know it's proposal, but where, I can't tell on the map, I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so the proposed plan is just kind of right at the end of Loon Street, so right in the industrial park. If you were to drive down where the
So the warehouse?
proposed, right almost in behind there, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell from the map, sir.
So one of our largest assumptions coming into this is the base population growth that's who service, so that's kind of our priority. Currently we're looking at 12,000 people population. Historic growth, we're about 1.2%. And 6,500 military members, 1,000 civilian members. That's what we know now today. What we assume, based on what we were hearing, estimated, early estimate indicate we're bringing an increase of 3,700 plus residents to Oromocto, which is about 30% more through other channels and other, what we should plan for. We're hearing a little bit more than that. These, and potentially, would effectively, between 5,000 to 7,000 is the number that we're also hearing. So that would take us to about 20,000 population, which is 67%. So we've got a range there that we're preparing for, planning these large infrastructure projects, so that would service people. So this slide talks a little bit about our water sewer rates. In last year, we split the rates into a commercial rate and a residential rate. So we've split up the fixed and variable rates based on the two. In accordance with our 5-year plan in the past, we're scheduled to lower our consumption rate on a residential to $2.90. So a little bit of a retreat this year as we've been aggressive in bringing the rates up. The residential, we're holding that, just looking at the 2027 column. So we're holding the rates on the commercial versus institutional side. In future years, we are looking for an increase in 2030. We can make some decisions next couple of years if we want to spread those on the residential side. On the institutional side, we are still going to, in our plan, in order to make meter expenditures, we are going to increase those by the $25 that's the 2028, 2029 years per month. One of the other large variable here is so we get more information on the water plant project. Some of those costs will likely change. We're hoping that will net favorable in terms of what we can do for our citizens. Less expensive to run the newer plants, so we can continue to provide a good rate on the water sewer rate. But we won't know that until the engineers come in with their estimates and we put them back in the washing machine and see what the numbers do. So here's just a list of the assumptions that went into how we come up with the rates for the expenditures plan. The operating costs, we took an assumption of 3%. We're still going to use gas tax, which is now Bill County Community Strong Fund. And we're going to use capital meeting fund to fund our project. We're still looking at government, other levels of government funding, so we can support our large investments, our infrastructure projects. We are will continue to absorb the TMD water rate increases. One of the change this year is our assumption on this is that we are still taking over the water treatment plant, so have our water treatment plant, water wastewater treatment plant both plants. In past years, we were assuming that maybe 2028 we would be able to complete the takeover and get it operated. We pushed that into 2029 based on what are pre-designed in our project timeline today. So we pushed that in. So from a water sewer standpoint, we're just recommending the keeping following the rate plan and going from there, and then we'll continue to see funding from our leisure projects. We have a slide around why continue. I think that's we're pretty in sync there with previous discussions with council. Lots of future anticipation here. Capacity and leave from the west. EMD rate increase that we are continuing to bear. and then catching up the infrastructure. So those are major reasons why we need to continue to do this. So turn away from water sewer on the operating budget side. Yeah, we got a surprise from the province with their tax reform. Not a surprise, but a bit of curveball. They put up some new legislation and we're learning it and we're adapting to it. And we're still not 100% there in terms of comprehending what the effect is, but we'll made some assumptions and we'll try to get to make the best we can with what we know today. Like there's, the message from the province, it's fair and equitable, predictable, transparent to understand. That's their message to the citizens and us. So what does that really mean to Oromocto? It reduces the flexibility to offset operating costs through an increased assessment. Greater scrutiny, public visibility of fiscal taxation decisions, potential constraint on revenue growth despite increasing service demands, infrastructure needed, inflationary pressures, increased importance of identifying operational efficiency, service delivery improvements to maintain a balanced budget. Continued uncertainty regarding financial implications of future provincial regulations, including additional implementation details. From transparency standpoint, we've always done a good job through 5-year plan presentation here, budget presentation, citizen consultation in terms of outlining all of our major expenditures and where our taxes go. Legislation really puts that on paper and then there's a final step of justifying, our rates and I'll flip through and continue to learn a little bit more on this. This is it's a little busy slide, but it's in summary, our new tax revenue is really going to be based on last year's revenue. And then they're going to give us a inflationary factor, what they call a local government cost index, which is a combination of population growth, CPI, non-residential, building construction cost index, and the Brunswick salary and wage. So somehow they put those in the formula, and they're going to tell us what the inflation rate is and how much revenue that we should get more than last year. So let's say we made an assumption that this the Brunswick cost inflation is 3%. So if we had $25 million for taxes last year, we're going to get $25 million plus what goes through. So, and then what they're going to do is they're going to divide that by the new assessment, which now gives us a new tax rate. And if we want to deviate from that tax rate, we have to outline all the stuff, all the reasons why we don't do that, and provide that to the minister and get the approval. And so not the end of the world, but it's a bit more cumbersome, and the uncertainty of us, come October, submitting a budget that maybe means 2 cents more because of A, B, and C. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We submit that to the minister. I'm not sure how fast they're going to turn that around. Come January, we're going to have a budget, but we're going to follow the process. So that's all we can do here.
Yeah, so just this slide, I know a lot of people have asked questions on this slide. It's not intended for you all to understand it, don't get me wrong, because we're still as staff trying to digest this and try to figure out how this is going to reflect back into the general coffers of our budget. But at the end of the day, they've made some changes that historically, we always had a good feel on what next year was going to bring when it came to just general market strengths that, we all had a feel for based on historical information And the long story short is this formula is now thrown that all out the window. And we're really not sure what, what this actually means for the next few years. But as we continue on, we're gonna get sure about it as we move back into the fall and as we refine it and as years go by. We'll get back to that point where we'll be able to, you know, more accurately pinpoint what our forecasts are. But for now, I don't want people staying awake at night trying to figure this formula out. Don't worry. We'll do that for you eventually, but that's what it looks like, just FYI.
So through some assumptions that we've made about index, cost index, and assessment growth assumptions, et cetera, all the assumptions that needs to go into this thing here. I laid out the chart, the first couple of columns is the our using our existing, the 5-year plan that we've done in the past year. So we're applying that in the first couple of columns. One column is town proper, the other is the Lincoln Wood. So in the past, we were looking to have the rate at 147, so you see in year 2027, we were looking to increase it by 2 cents, 2 cents more in 2028, and then stabilize it at that point. So that's the first column, where that's what we had initially planned to do through our past years of the 5-year plans. The middle 2 column, tax rate new formula, it's using that formula we saw in the previous slide, making our assumptions and what the tax rate's gonna look like. So applying the assumptions, the tax rate for 2027 should be about $1.38, 55, 57, 73. That, and working that back to our expenditure that we had planned, the repayment of infrastructure bills, rec center, operating costs, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it created a bit of a shortfall because we're looking also at a big risk of realizing an all reassessment increase plus the 2 cents in order to meet those demands, those service levels in 2028, 2029. So on the last 2 columns is where looking for some direction from council in order to make that work. You know, 2027, 2028. I showed an example of 2028. You know, putting up the 3.5 cents on top of what the recommended rate is in order to meet the obligations that we had set out to do in our 5-year plan. There's options again to spread, you know, because by 2027, 2028, we could alleviate the pressure by smaller increases in both years. One of the deceiving look here on the tax rate is where the tax rate's going down. But the towns get more revenues. I think the next slide will show us that. So on the left, look down, get the folder. We had a calculation from last year, using a $350,000 average home. We've been using that number and increasing that over the years. And that's what the taxes would be using our 2026 mill rate. With an assumption of 7.8% assessment increase, that average home is down to $377,000. Applying the calculated recommended rate of 138.55. The tax amount is $5,200, so $5,227 versus the $5,075. So in effect, it's really for the increase on the bottom box is $152 for 123, and $63 for Lincoln. So that's the impact as is. And the math is that, you know, if we ask for another cent, that's $38. And change $38.
So, yeah, and I know folks have seen this, as we presented it through budgets, where the impact on a mill rate increase is not really significant per se to the average homeowner. The impact on the bottom line to the average homeowner has always been the assessment rate increase that is combined. So here, what we try to demonstrate is that what we're thinking we're gonna get from a capped assessment increase at around 3%, wrapped into that average home really equates to $152 increase, instead of saying, well, if we raise your taxes by a cent, it's $38. So we want to be as transparent as we can about what that potential will be, because when you back up and look at the old other slide, you'll notice that, hey, wait a second, our mill rate's gone to 138, but the bill's higher. Yes, it's because of the assessment increase. So we just wanted to put this in there so that when we start to have those conversations, this is what people feel, right? This is the part they feel like, hey, my bill went up $152, but you said the taxes didn't go up. Let's say, yes, that's, both statements are true. Right? They are both true, but it's just making sure we can differentiate the impact to the individual as they see on the bottom line versus what we're actually able to do in terms of making sure we can offer a balanced budget. So, for now, it's not necessarily wanting council to make a decision on a rate increase, but we're trying to determine, do you want us to task staff with, looking at what we can balance based on a 0% mill rate increase, a 3.5 cent mill rate increase, or something in between? That's kind of the question that at the end of the night here, the presentation is one of those things we'd like to hear from you folks in order to give staff that direction. Because once you give it to us, that's the benchmark for which staff will have to balance their respective budgets.
So just a slide here, just to note the assumptions that we made in our operating budget to inflation that we looked at 3% with a 2, and then down to next couple of years. We did make an assumption on the local government tax, the local government cost index. We used a 3%. We estimated net, that average of assessment was 7.3. So just some words are we had a lower assumption with the base assessment. We're still expecting we've inserted the operating costs for rec center 2029. We're still using capital renewal fund and gas tax funds to balance to help support the infrastructure project and balance the budget. Some service, regional service commission fees, we're still expecting it to be just less than $200,000. And then we're still have the assumption of getting funding for different levels of development for major infrastructure projects. The next slide here is really is outlining what the budget's going to absorb. This is what the annual repayment costs of the through these major projects. And, there was a rec center. We completed the demolition project, we completed the site cleanup, we're probably pretty close to the finish line, maybe 89% on our design. So we're almost there. The wastewater treatment solution for the west, we're in an RFP, we're about to be in an RFP process to have that design and constructed. We did receive the funding for that one, $16 million, about 2/3. And then the various water lines throughout the town, so we are going to continue to do the best we can in terms of using funding, different levels of government funding, and then put our money in when it's needed.
So the thing here for me, for folks to focus on here is, on that slide is that it, we'll use the example, like we talk about $1 million as a total project cost. And people are like, the town's gonna spend $9 million. It's like, well, not exactly. I mean, the town's committed to 17.5. And that annual repayment is really 1.5, so that's what staff will be tasked to budget and balance on an annual basis. But yes, we talk to people transparently about what the actual cost of the project's gonna be in this bigger number, but it really boils down to, this is what we're gonna be budgeting for the next 20 years, just so so that we can make sure people kind of have a feel for how that's all gonna break down based on the priorities that you told us to focus. So that helps in that regard, and just on the general assumptions too. The other thing to remember there is that we've made those general assumptions, and we like to be conservative in them, and so if we do better in those general assumptions, that will allow us to give more flexibility as to that potential mill rate increase if we do better. And I generally, because we're conservative in those numbers, we tend to do better, but at this point, it's just a projection. So, that's, I guess, it from the perspective of the presentation. And so really our objective, to Peter's point, was twofold. One is just to discuss a little bit on that sort of benchmark for what we might be able to work with regards to a possible mill. Won't say that's gonna be the case, but we would use that to try to balance our budgets through the process. And the other one then is wrapping that into just a general approval of the 5-year plan as presented.
Deputy Mayor Bellhector.
Thank you, Worship. Can we go back to slide 14 for a second, please? Kind of skipped over to one column that looks kind of important, shortfall to balance budget. So if I'm reading this right, if we go from $1.45 in 2026 to $1.3855 in 2027, in wards 1 and 3, if we go from 60.42 in Lincoln to 57.73, we're gonna have to find $609,000 to balance the budget.
Correct.
So we're gonna have to either cut services
Correct.
or
Find efficiency.
find efficiency.
For all these gentlemen behind you need to find efficiencies within their respective budgets to make that up.
But the third option is it won't be $1.38 and it won't be 57 cents.
If we can't find that one.
No, but I'm just saying that we kind of skipped over that one column, but I think it's a pretty important column to understand, because we look at the Ouija board that the government's presented us to figure out tax rates. And I suggest when we get to the point where we have to add to our mill rate because of the government, that we name that part of our tax, the provincial government shortfall tax. I'll make a motion on that later, Kind of hard to look at the Ouija board and, to your point, come up with any kind of solid mill rate. Again, I'm just flabbergasted at the lack of. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but I cannot express my disappointment in the government lack of reform in the reform part of their proposal, because they haven't reformed a darn thing. And they haven't addressed the shortfalls that exist. They haven't opened any other new funding avenues, aside from the old one. 3 forms of government, 1 level of taxpayer. And here we go again, so, yeah, I'm very disappointed in what the government's presented with us. And it's gonna be hard to come up with a solid number because. Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna come up with a solid rate because it's Ouija boards out there.
Yeah, it's a guessing game.
Well, you're guessing with people's budgets.
Councilor Maloney? Thank you, Your Worship. I will share some of the sentiments as the previous speaker. I won't use the same analogy. However, I do, it is very disappointing that the financial aspect of reform was not done at the same time as the actual reform. Because I do think it has, kind of compounded us to this kind of place where we're at. I was one of the ones who came to ask questions earlier about this exact slide, because there were things just, I wasn't understanding what some of the assumptions were. However, when we do look a little bit later in the presentation down to slide 16, there are also a multitude of assumptions for which it was done. And I understand that assumptions have to be made. That's how we do use financial forecasting. I also understand that the most prudent thing to do is, as you have done, is do a conservative forecasting, in the sense that, we're kind of going on the worst case scenario kind of approach, which I think is great. However, for us to be able to make any type of informed decision in terms of some of the things that we are being asked to do in an environment when we really don't understand it ourselves, we're doing the best we can as staff. I would be more inclined to go on the no increase in 2027, simply because there's so many things we don't know. And we could, and I know that there could be an argument made that the most prudent thing would be to do like smaller increases to try to offset a bigger increase later. But we also know that once we recommend an increase at any point, the likelihood of backing it off later on is fairly unlikely. So that is kind of where my head is at, but I suppose I couldn't be persuaded, but I just find that there's so much we don't know. And at this point, we're making not guesses, but we're kind of trying to make what we feel is the best financially for our town, but ultimately for the people who are going to be paying the bills at the end. And now, and just to further that one a little bit, all of this is run under the assumption that we make no spending decisions to the 5-year plan that we have already put in place. So I think someone across the table originally said that, or we cut something. Well, I suppose that's what you do. If you can't maintain the level of expenditure for everything that you put in your budget, then you look, okay, are there things within your budget that we're choosing to defray or not do to lower those costs? So, I do understand that nutshell, but I would just be really hesitant to recommend increasing something at this point when there's so many assumptions behind the forecast.
Councilor Kirkbride?
Thank you, Worship. I would tend to agree with Councilor Bonnie at this point in time anyway. And do we have, I guess my question really is, do we have,
Chris,
like you said, the Ouija board is out there, what have you, whatever. Do we have? I guess the provincial government, because everybody has to submit, every council has to submit their budgets, by the end of November. So when is the provincial government going, like, it's gonna be a week before they're planning on giving you the numbers, like, when are they gonna give the numbers? Because that's a great help to our staff to figure some things out. So have to be given a time, like a date or, September 1st, whatever, if they said anything.
I don't think they said a specific date. No, we read through the materials and there was no specific date in the materials that we've been provided.
So it could be the week before.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say historically to that point, up until this year, they've been getting better at giving us a little more runway with numbers, so. The last few years, we've got pretty firm numbers right around the first part of October, so we've been able to lead into those final sort of public sessions with a. Pretty good idea of what our budget, how it was gonna shape. Whether that will be the same this year. Nobody has said it won't be, but they haven't certainly said it will be either, right? So we're not sure. Long story short is we might get it or it could be last minute. What we will do though is in order to kick our project process off is we do want to give staff a benchmark to work with so that they can really do their thing and find their efficiencies based on that benchmark. And so that's why, tonight it's a good conversation to have. If the consensus is that we don't raise a mill rate for now, and we're not suggesting that it will end up being that, because we may still find efficiencies as part of our budget process and go, hey, guess what? We just got a great surprise and it's not 3.5, it's only 2.5. That could happen. You don't know, but we're just trying to establish a benchmark so that all those folks can go back and start their departmental, discussions on what can they do, what can they live without based on that benchmark. So.
Any other questions or comments? It's like looking in their crystal ball and seeing fog.
Yeah, and if I can echo Councilor Oromocto's, there is a deficit. I guess it's projected based on our 5-year plan. So if we like to continue with our 5-year plan and execute what's in it, at some point, that 3.5 can be lower because we might get a very surprise. Maybe today and then through this week's council, it's about, are we still committed to the expenditure, and staff make best effort to reduce, reduce a budget that's balanced, because we have to do that. If we need to come back in October, November, asking for the Senate, 1.5 cents to make things work, that we wouldn't be at a no at the gate, because if it's no, tell us no now. We'll find $600,000-800,000, so we need to there right away. We might get a surprise and our gap might only be 400, and then we can find a couple hundred and we only need 1 cent. We can come to the table at that point, but we just need to know your appetite in terms of, hey, this is, if we come back and ask for 2 cents, that's gonna be a showstopper, and we'll stop that now. We'll go down that road. And it's like, okay, well, we're looking at 1 cent and $40. We think we can sell that, okay. let's open it up so that, you know, staff can sort of do our best effort in terms of pulling it up in the line, to at least come back knowing that. You know, there's room there.
Yeah, so yeah, I share the principle that if I can give staff a benchmark to work with now, it's far better than them getting into late October, having done a lot of work and everyone going, we gotta find $600,000. Now all of a sudden, everybody's scrambling around and they doing things maybe that we maybe shouldn't do because we're just trying to find quick hits to reduce budget versus if we talk about it now. And we're okay, like, hey, look, if you want to set that note, 0 is 0, and that's where we won't accept that any more than that for this year. No problem, that will be in my memo and I will take all of these people to task to hold the line to it. But for now, we just want to get that appetite to know, okay, is there any willing for flex there? If there is, then we'll still make them be conscious of it, but we'll know, okay, we might be able to work with an extra 200,000 maybe plus or minus, and that can help sometimes shape some of the conversations that we're about to embark on with staff over the next, 6 to 8 weeks.
Any other comments or questions, Council? Oh, Council Meyer?
I just actually have to go back on slide 8. So our two rate increases, just address it, I assume that's just a specific preparation for the structure upgrades, operating cost offset, things like that for the projected population.
Yeah, that's also to absorb some of the infrastructure costs that we have planned, the water sewer lines that we have committed to, the benches coming when we get to. Is that, thank you.
Council Whalen, do you have a question?
No questions here.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Pete. All right, we move down now to the monthly departmental report. We'll start.
So if I can,
Sorry.
Your Worship, do we have any kind of consensus on what you want as far as that, flexibility on the rate? Is the consensus 0? Is it a cent, a half? Just give us some direction here and we'll take whatever the consensus is. Again, this is not locking anybody into a specific mill rate increase per se. It's just allowing me to set the base for our conversation with staff.
I guess my thoughts on that is, we don't have much choice. That sounds it's really, and if the mindset is to try to do obviously as much as we can to make this be less painful, I guess there's not much else we can do. The fact that we, except for what, like if we say, oh no, we don't want to play with the center two and maneuver, what's the other option?
We have to find that
That's what I'm, so I think if we're all on the same mindset of one, this is not great and we'd like to try to find a way to make it less painful. And we can only do what we can do. I mean, we can cut things and do this and do that, but we all know there's gonna be things that we're not willing to cut. So, and I've always felt that we've never seemed to abuse that situation. We all seem to be on the same page of what we want to offer the town and their experience and what they're getting from here doesn't get to alter too much. So to be honest with you, I don't think we have much choice, but then to play with the numbers to see what we can do and work hard about tightening things because it is what it is. Like, I don't know what plan B would be. Right?
Council Carr?
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of on the fence between the two options. Option A and option B. I'm more inclined. I think it was option B. I closed it at this point, but I think it was the splitting it, dividing. I understand Mr. Mooney's point, Councilor Berry's point of you never know what's coming down the lines, putting it off that one more year. We may, okay, this isn't what we thought it was. But it's a little bigger kick in the pants, so it's just harder for the average person. Budgets are getting tighter and tighter in personal world too. So a little bit at a time, I feel like it's more manageable for many people. And I don't see it as big a problem if, hey, everything comes out rosy and we get a step back. I'd rather step back than take more. In 2 years, potentially bigger kick, and who knows what else is coming down the line into. Yeah, we see this 3.5, but who knows, they could throw us another curveball and now it's 5.5.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's any better having half 3.5 and then that like 5, like, I don't know, but. If I had to say, I would say the smaller amount, smaller increments myself, but. I see valid points on both sides, so.
Councilman, what do you think? I guess, I mean, I'm gonna stick with what my original thought was. My thought was is to run it with no increase. And the reason why I say that is I traditionally have adopted that exact same approach because to me, smaller increases is a lot less shock to the person who's paying. We typically are though operating in an environment in which there are less variables out there. This is still a process we're trying to understand. So to me, it would make more sense to give direction, in my opinion, to give direction, to say, hold the line for now. And then once more variables are known as we start getting closer and closer to that budgeting process, then we would then rely upon staff who have then started to solidify some of these factors, which are no longer assumptions, which are now knowns. And they come back to us, and they say, you know what, that delta that we thought was 600,000, it's actually 250, it's actually 450. So where are we at now? Do you now have the appetite to raise the mill rate by 1.5 cents so that we can accomplish everything you have in your 5-year plan? Or are we at a point for which we now have to say these are the things we can't do? And I am more comfortable of then knowing what it is, other than just saying, inject the money now. And then maybe that was not needed. So I would rather know, run it now under the current, and then if you need it later, then come and tell us, because at the end of the day, this is a 5-year plan that we adopted. So basically, all staff would be doing is saying, we cannot accomplish your 5-year plan with the amount of resources that you have given us. We need to be able to generate more revenue. So you're gonna need to up it by this to accomplish it, as opposed to just giving it in advance. Without having more of those things known. So that's just my comfort level, but I do typically prescribe to the notion of smaller increase over here, and that may end up being what it is. But anyway, that's kind of my position.
Councilor
And Council, I understand what you mean. I guess my only thoughts on that, and back to where we've been diligently doing this a certain way, I don't know what would be so significantly different that would keep option 1 viable. Because I feel we run a tight ship. I feel we do things that are, so I guess when I look at the numbers, and I understand, yes, it would be nice to say no increase for, yeah, it's always nice to say the words. But my fear is, if, to your point, we get there and we have to do it anyway, okay. But I guess the mindset is if we're writing the tight ship and the numbers are what they are and the formula what it is, I guess making the plan to spread it over the 2-year thing, just to me is just reality of what's actually gonna happen hypothetically. Now, I'd love to think that we'll get to option 1 and we get there and we made it work, sure. And to be honest with you, I find it hard to believe that you won't be doing that mindset anyway. You know what I mean? I don't feel that that's not gonna be the plan, no matter what. But just the idea of having it, unless something dramatically changed, then I don't know, but we've just been watching these budgets. A lot of these things are pretty much the same thing that we always need. So, you know, unless we decide not to do the municipal building or something major, which when I look at these priorities, we have no choice. These are all substantial priorities that are on our plan. So that was the only reason I thought, I love the idea of not doing it, but if it's just in the books, because it's gonna play out that way, I guess I just thought I would love to say no. The option A would be great, but I just feel that I just don't know what the change would be. I don't understand what would be different than what they've already told us is gonna happen. So. But I'm great either way. It's just that that was the reason I thought B was more practical.
Yeah, so just just so that we're all crystal clear, I mean, what we put together so far in the 5-year forecast is, as Deputy Mayor's pointed out, is that if all the assumptions hold true,
Right,
we will need to find $600,000 and cut it. That's what we know. We 100% know that right now. That's what was presented to you. What we don't know are, will our assumptions hold true? Maybe we come favorable and one of those assumptions is better in our case, like, you know, we get more new growth than we expected. And so that helps the revenue side, which might help defray that number being 600, now it's only 400. Those are all helpful things, so we agree this is a new year, a new formula, we're really trying to put our thumb on it as hard and get it as precise as we can for you now. But the reality is, if we go with the 0, we will at least say, okay, staff, in order of what we know now, I need you to find $600,000 worth of efficiencies amongst you all. Where can you find? And we'll have those conversations.
but one, that mindset.
We are
That's like that, I guess that's my point, you wanna, if we pick B, you're gonna say, okay, let's just sit back, we got the money, we're gonna vote, you know. We're hopefully doing that mindset anyway, because and the more we do, the more efficient we are, obviously, the less we raise, it's as simple as that, so.
Yeah, you know, well, I'll say this, typically the easiest place to find 1 year worth of relief is to not do something on your cap list. That's the easiest thing. That's what a lot of communities will do if they're having a tough year, is they'll say, you know what, we were gonna repave 20 kilometers of road, next year we're only gonna do 10. That's where we're gonna find our efficiencies. That's the easiest way. The harder way, the death by a million cuts way, is going to each individual group and going, okay, I need you to find so much money out of each one of these account lines that you hold operationally, and tell me you can do without, you know, 10,000 in this account, 3,000 in that account, and that's another way to do it. And we'll look at both. We'll look at both and try to come up with a plan if the direction is hold it at 0 mill rate increase.
Right. So. All right, now we'll move on to staff report. We'll start with the Department of Public Works and the new directors here. Mr. Baxter is here. In case you haven't met it.
Are we all, do we have a consensus?
Yeah, we should have a show of hands or something,
Just to get a consensus.
yeah, 1 or 2.
And it's just weird now, if the answer to this question is staff time, then that's the simple answer. I mean, when Councilor Murdoch says I'm to do this anyway, I think the answer is actually, I really don't think you are, because when you're provided with the money, you're basically being told, this is how much money you have, make your budget, accomplish as many things you have as you can. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of
Natural.
That's kind of, I think, how it works. For me, though, I guess what I'm thinking about is, if you're like, why are we not running a couple scenarios? So, and maybe the answer is staff time. So, like, scenario 1 is, if we were to hold the line, these are the recommendations of the things that have to be done. If you give me $1.50 this year and $1.50 the next year, this is what we can do. If you do it all, 3.5 spread over, so 2 1 year or 1.7 each year, this is what it looks like. I guess that's my question.
Yeah, so
But I guess what I'm saying is, why is it one or the other?
So for me, it's not so much to be married to what you're saying as an increase, but because we can present those as we go through the budget process, right? But it's just to know, okay, what if the baseline is find $600,000 worth of efficiencies, then that's what we'll work with. If the baseline is, you know what? We know that could be a challenge, like go ahead and balance it. What does that mean? That's 3.5 cents. Or you can be like, hey, let's split the pain and be like, you're still not gonna balance it, but you can be a little bit closer if we say, hey, let's half it halfway, so we ease the pain half. We'll still produce like, okay, if we're short 300, here's where we think our savings can come as we move through the budget process, but it's nice to know, do you want us to start right off with cutting 600,000, because will be the task? Or do we want to start off with, see if you can balance it, we're willing to take that hit, or we're not willing to take that hit? Because I respect that you folks are the voice of the people here. I'm just trying to balance a budget, so I just want to know if you can't stomach that hit. I want to be able to tell our staff that you're not prepared to do that this year. No problem. I will fully make sure that they stick to, we need to find that $600,000 potential efficiency somewhere within our budget this year. So I'm not asking people to lock into, you're locking into an increase on a tax rate. No, I don't want that per se. I just want to know what you think, what might be that gut appetite to suck up some of that difference. If we couldn't find any more efficiencies and you still want us to do all the things you want us to do. And that was.
Okay, I guess, he was the first. I guess to me, it was more, that was the case, if we couldn't find efficiencies. If all you're looking for is a general direction or assumption basis by which we can run. That we can run with a split it over the 2 years, if we can't find efficiencies. I can accept that kind of assumption process, because we're really not locking ourselves into anything at this point. It's just give them a set of assumptions by which to run numbers. So I can accept that at this point.
Yeah, because legislatively, it would be completely unfair to the public and quite frankly, procedurally illegal if we decided tonight what our tax rate was going to be for next year. That's not what we're having a conversation about. We're just trying to get an idea from you as to what your possible exposure to that might be when that time comes. That 2 months from now, when I put a slide up for final approval that says I need 1.5 cents, everybody doesn't jump under the table and go, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. That's why we just want to have that sort of direction for now. And, we may get lucky in the next 8 weeks that we find those efficiencies, or some of our assumptions are better than what we had predicted, and so we may not need to have that discussion at that time. But if that's the gut feel that we can kind of split that difference in two, and we'll work with that for now, fully committed to trying to be as efficient as possible, then I certainly am willing to take that if that's the consensus direction from everybody.
Councilor Myers?
Actually, to be honest.
He stole the question? Okay. Okay, well, council, it's time to vote. You said for or against?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm not quite, they're both the same now. If we're talking about I've just said we're not automatically gonna raise it, so we're gonna try to find it, and if we get here, so that, to me, after all the discussion, they're both the same. So, yeah, we want you guys to do everything possible not to raise taxes, but at the same time, we understand. And then after you do your due diligence, the situation we're in with the changes and stuff, that there might be a case. I feel like they're both the same in the sense of, we're not making any commitment here, we're just saying we really want you dig deep if we can, without, taking away all the stuff that we work hard to do here. So I don't know, there's a difference now. Cause like you said, it's, if you're on that same page anyway, what's the difference? Unless I'm missing something.
I was feeling the same thing, that's why I wanted to move on, because I thought it was just kind of like a given.
Unless I'm missing something, if there's a to B thing that we have to define, then I guess I've gotten blurred. In the middle. So I'm in the middle.
That's correct.
Your worship, and maybe this is covered, or I missed it, but, so, the no, like you said, the hard numbers, we know if we operate as with the numbers here now, 2027, $609,000 shortfall. What is the increase to level at as operating the way we are now? Like, what sense hit 600,000? Like, if we put on 4, does it hit to 600,000? If we put on 2.9, does it hit 600? Because I'm curious there, like our level of service right now, I think generally people are happy with. I know increases or decreases, and there's all kinds of changes that should get back to very little tiny detail in, but personally, if I knew we put it up 3.5, that covers 750. Okay, well, we're back from there then, because we're then ahead, right? So it covers the 600. What, the 3.5 covers the 609? Yeah. Is that the way I understand? That's what I assumed, but I didn't know that. So that's 3.5. That is.
If we do that, then it's covered,
Right.
Yeah, so that just covers us off, and then that keeps us moving forward. And the reason you see bigger numbers in future years is that if we don't, then it keeps compounding as we.
I just wanted 100% thank you for that. Yes.
So is it warm and fuzzy that we move on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Councilor Whalen, you're okay?
Warm and fuzzy.
You're the designing mode. Okay. We'll move on now to the staff reports, and we'll start with the Department of Public Works, and of course, I just mentioned Mr. Baxter as the director, so any questions or comments? Councilor Kirkbride?
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, welcome. Second, and I don't know how it works, because I know Restitution Road, where Schultz and all those places are, that's still provincial, correct? But did we do the patching on that? Because there was a huge pothole from Rhonda's. I know 2 people now have hit it, one of them being my sister. Got a flat tire from it, but got a flat tire, and I know of 2 now. And there used to be a sign. It's not, the sign's even gone off, like there used to be a bump sign or something. And I'm wondering if that's on the radar to be patched, or we get the little sign back up.
Yeah, no, it is on the radar to be patched, so that's the schedule over the next week or following.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I seen the sign gone, so I thought it must have got patched, but I didn't, okay. Any other questions for the Department of Public Works? None? Okay. We'll move on to Department of Engineering Services. Any questions or comments? None? Leave us off the hook. All right, move on to the staff report to the CEO, Department of Corporate Services and Finance. Any questions or comments? Nothing on the, oh, Councilor Kirkbride?
So I noticed on the 5-year plan, that, and I thought that we discussed last month about the new, regional wellness center. That tenders would be probably going out again before the end of this year, but that one slide said it would be going out until the spring of 2027. So something changed between last month and this month.
So,
Because I thought the idea was tenders going out late this year, like November, before the Christmas season, because we all know what happens at Christmas season. And that way people can start right away in the spring. So hopefully breaking ground, so to speak. So I thought that's what we talked about last month. And then I saw the tenders would be going out until springtime this year on that spot. So did something change there?
not really, I think
Or you think in January?
We
not
think-
spring?
we would tender things in January for a spring start.
That's all I wanted to think.
Now, that's also caveat is provided that the appropriate funding.
Right, no, absolutely, I should. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to planning and compliance department. Any questions or comments? None? All right. We'll move to the Department of Human Resources. Any questions or comments, council? All right. We'll go to Department of the Oromocto Fire Department. Any questions or comments? Jody was here and he's gone. Oh, that's it.
Just a comment, I really love the approach that the fire department did with this presentation. I love that they thought outside the box. And I don't know, did they do the same thing last year? Was this the first year they went to make it? Really, really nice idea. I think that the people appreciate it. I really put a buzz about it. And they, just the fact they were there, and I'm very, very impressed that, you know, they took the initiative to, again, host a really great meeting that no one tends to, which we all know it's great information and can't seem to get them. The idea of bringing it to the people is great, and I hope that continues. I think that's something maybe we can all try with, because it seems to have better, the numbers look great. The attendance and stuff, and like I said, I heard a little bit of buzz about it. So just that they were there and showed up, and I just wanted to pass on to the chief and the staff that that was really great initiative. We appreciate it.
And that was a great presentation too.
And nice and
She's
and
good at
not
what she
too,
does.
not too big, you know, not too overwhelming, just simple things. I go, and I did have those boxes that they have there. Are they something you can buy somewhere? The sprinkler thing?
They are, yeah,
They have them at the, okay.
and then they can be
I wouldn't talk to us.
purchased, like through regular retail channels, but it's just to make people aware that you can go to local hardware stores.
So that's where you can get, if you someone
Yeah.
wants to get, okay.
Yeah, it's just, most people don't know they exist, but
Well, that's
so,
okay, I never knew.
so the start is to make people aware, yeah, they exist, you know.
So I think they've been existing for a while.
They have, it's,
You said west.
Well, yeah, she mentioned. that
it's
last-
been a while out west, but they're starting, you know, as people are becoming more familiar
Well,
with, you know, with
having-
this kind of event, they're like, oh, maybe it's kind of like having a fire extinguisher, right? You know, people are like, well, why do I need one of those until you actually need one? So-
Yeah.
So this
I
is,
like
this is similar.
And that information's obviously put out on our website and stuff like that too, right? And maybe that now this is fine, we can say, here's your box, we'll find it here. And no, good job. That's it.
I think there's 2 hoses in the box and I think he said it was about $380 for the box.
Yeah.
So it's well worth it and when you think about it. Yeah. And there's hooks that go on it. So when you-
Yeah, she said you just push it up.
Like Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Kind of, except they hook into your hose
I was
bit.
just gonna say.
And you basically hook it up and then you can take a broomstick and hook them onto your eaves troughing. They have sprinkler heads that are turned up and they kind of spin. And you turn the tap on and then you evacuate with the hopes that that's gonna help kind of keep your property safe while you're not there.
And just one thing before we move on out of reports, I should have said something, I guess, public works. The, down on the, and I'm gonna describe this because it's referred to me by my grandson. Down over in the Oromocto West where they go down to fish, on the other side of behind, I think, Freeman's, is that where they go? So, does everybody know?
Old
My
Harris
grandson is a
Springs.
professional fisherman now, so I'm just.
Yeah.
a lot of garbage, a lot of crap, stuff. Now, I don't know if it's a Mavis thing that you go by and you check on it, but there was a lot of stuff just, and I, you know, it's like, it's typical people making messes and not cleaning up. But I thought, it might not even be any rounds, or it might be once in a while, but there seems to be a fair amount of it. I thought, well, I'll make sure, you know, that should be on the priority. First thing on a new job.
Yeah.
Local Fisher Pond for the kids to clean up. Oh, good. I'm glad I could put that on your list. Thank you.
All right, move on to the Department of Recreation and Tourism. Questions or comments? I have one. Does anyone know when exact date they're gonna open the Kings Road?
The what?
Open of the rink.
I don't have an exact date.
Council Kirk, right now.
I've heard a couple rumors, I mean, it's October first and it has been for the last 10 years, but I've heard the rumor because October first is in the middle of a week this year. They may try to open a couple days earlier. And not wait until that following Monday, I've heard that. I can't say for sure, but October first is normally the date. It has been
I'm the same, yeah.
10 to 15 years, probably, it's always been October first. Because I know when I used to coast, no practice that day, so it's the first day of duck season, so no practices for me on first. But the process is in the middle of the week this year, like it's not on a Thursday, it's not on Friday, I think it's on Wednesday.
So
Thursday, October first is a Thursday this year. So I heard it may open, and maybe they'll go with it Monday, I don't know, but I know. People are gonna be chomping at the bit to get out there October first for sure, so.
Yeah. I know that because I already got calls.
Yeah. It has been October first for the past 10 years at least.
And generally speaking, I would say it is right with plus or minus 3 days either way of October first.
Yeah.
And we can, you know, ask Jackie and staff, because sometimes it just depends on whether they can get programming in earlier or not. And unfortunately, sometimes it depends on weather. If we have one of these 30-degree Indian summers, so to speak, in September is super warm, it makes it harder and more difficult to get ice prep into KA, unfortunately, but we'll ask staff and see if they have a confirmed sort of date.
Perfect. All right, we'll move on to the Department of the Clerk's Office. Cindy's here, if there's any questions. None? All right. That means we're gonna move on to the administration. We've got a long list. And we'll start with 5.A and the CEO. You have.
Yeah, well, largely they're just on there because we will need to do readings of these on Thursday. So just there as a placeholder for tonight, if there are any last minute questions, comments, or concerns about any of those bylaws and doing the respective readings on Thursday. If there are, I mean, Dallas is here. Most of them relate to zoning, planning related things, but I think they're pretty straightforward, although it's just an opportunity if there is to have a quick discussion if there's any further questions or comments on any one from A down to F.
Council, if anyone has any concerns from A to F, now's the time to. Oh, yep, Councilor Norman, thank you, Richard.
It's not a concern on any of them, it's more in proposed bylaw 543. Section, I assume this question would be through to Cindy or so about voting. And my question is there ever been a clause in there about if there was an important matter that needed to be voted upon between meetings, that you could do voting via email? Because I can see that there could be cases in which there is a need to get feedback from, well, because
Your worship, I understand your
Yeah.
question and I had it with the CAO earlier. All decisions of council have to be made at a council meeting. So, there is electronic means in which to communicate or to attend meetings,
Yes.
but not via email.
As a follow-up, thank you. And that is as per the community plan. So my question is what piece of
What
legislation?
we're talking about, it would be the Local Governance Act, not
Okay.
Community Planning
Okay.
Act. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We'll move on to 5G, the tender awards, the Dakota Drive infrastructure upgrades, and I think David Goodfellow has it.
Evening, Your worship. In the summer of 2025, the Forces Base Gage Town engaged in discussions with the town of Oromocto as part of the federal government's plan to rebuild the military. The town's part, Oromocto Bolts operates and maintains some 25,500 meters of roadway and surface infrastructure that directly supports military personnel residing within the residential housing units, formerly the PFUs. As such, the Department of National Defense and town of Oromocto reached an agreement to fund and facilitate the upgrades and renewals of the existing RHU infrastructure. As part of the RHU infrastructure renewal project, a request for construction services to perform roadway structure upgrades was issued to Brunswick Opportunities Network. July 20th, 2026, tender ORO 2603 was posted to the NBON site. August 11th, on tender closing, 5 tender submissions have been received. The skipping down, so RHU construction renewal project funding will be sourced entirely from the capital system program that is being sponsored by D&D. The project engineer's cost estimate for Dakota Avenue was $3,657,255 plus HST. Lowest tender bid was $3,814,300 plus HST. LCL Excavation Inc. has submitted the lowest bid received. Department of Engineering Services recommends that town council approve the accept the bid amount from LCL Excavation to proceed with infrastructure renewal services for Dakota Avenue.
Councilor Murdoch.
Have you used them before? That sounds familiar.
We have not, but they have done, 2 parts now for First Nations. For what's going on with the First Nations, so you can do the, earlier phase we took, and then the, finished up this year with the Kirby section.
Oh, nice. And where they?
They have a branch here in the Farmington area. They set up shop. I can't remember exactly where. LCL is actually quite a big.
Yeah, well, it just sounds familiar and I didn't know that I've seen it here somewhere else.
So they bought modern construction. Big company also, so LCL's been quite expanded company by the last 10 years or so.
Nice to see some new people then.
So is that warm and fuzzy, council? Okay, we move on to the second one. And it's the Mohawk Street infrastructure upgrades.
So this request for decision is structured almost identically with the same item. So I'll skip down right a little bit. On July 21st, we posted a tender for ORO 2604 to the NBNO site. The closing was on August 12th. We had 2 tenders for that submission. The engineer's estimate is $3,361,505,000. It's HSD. Typo in there. The lowest tender bid was $3,337,000. That's HSD. Dexter Construction Company Limited had submitted the lowest bid.
It's the same question. Do you have you used them before?
Dexter's did Schooler Street last year. First phase of Schooler.
Oh, okay. And where are they located?
It is originally out of Nova Scotia, but they bought Montes. Are abroad also from two companies.
Nice,
So they're quite a big setup also.
great, I like it.
Like that warm and fuzzy, council?
Yeah.
Perfect. Dave? We move to 5H, the policy amendments. We'll start with 5H1. We return to work policy, and I think, Peter, you have that, don't you?
Your worship, thank you, councilors, we've, as our regular, policy updates, we reviewed these two policies for this round. We did make some changes to them. I'll speak to, the return to work policy. We've, clarified some languages, and roles of the human resources that. As well as just sort of the scope of return to work where. Capturing all absences, not only absences related to. Claims that we would have made or sick leave that would have required us to pay sick leave, so was an absent because of any reason. This policy would govern. The other one is the holiday and leave policy. We clarify some languages around the use of supervisors use of annual leave provision. And the paternity leave, we mirror that so that the paternity leave is up to date with regulations. You should see the last one on that one is the wording of accruing sick and vacation credits. We've aligned that with our top up policy where we do not accrue if you are if your leave is beyond 16 weeks. We went through the policies or process on policies that we draft these policies, we go into the department get feedback and the changes that we thought we should feel that it's rational and simple. So these are the changes. I would
Nice to have it.
Any questions or comments, Colin?
No, thanks.
No. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Pete. We go to 5I, the 227 budget preparation.
There's one more, your worship, the hiring policy.
Oh. You didn't know?
We have the hiring part.
Oh, the hiring policy.
I'll take that.
Oh, you're gonna take that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here. With the HR do. Just as to follow on with what Peter is saying in terms of modernizing our policies, this is another one. We discussed it briefly last month and so thought it was time to bring it forward now. And it's, the focus of this was to administratively capture what we're currently doing now. So there's some operational practices that you'll see highlighted in the policies that include some new language about the use of the human resources manager, et cetera. The other piece is to align it with what we currently do with the appointments and the hirings. And to align it with similar to what we do with the summer students, whereas the CAO has the responsibility for the hirings and the operational processes involved in that. And what we're proposing is that council would be informed of those operational hirings, not unlike what we do when we have the summer students. But there are specific positions that do require a council resolution, and those are outlined within the Local Governance Act. And those are the officers of the town of Oromocto. So they would still require approval from council. But what we would like to do is kind of streamline our process. Right now, you've probably seen we have a couple of job ads out And it would be nice if the CAO has that ability to ensure that our hiring policy is followed. And engage in the contract negotiations, or not him necessarily, but it could be the HR manager, and to move on with those hirings without bringing them to council for ratification. When we looked at similar sized municipalities, we did some research and we found that this is the common practice, that it's council's role to set the policies, but it's the CAO's role to implement them on behalf of council. So those are the changes that we're proposing within this hiring policy.
Councilor Murdoch?
Well, isn't that kind of what we've been doing though? Like, doesn't really come in front of us who they are, it will comes to us when it's a recommended person, doesn't it? And that's what we're saying, is that to remove that, so in other words, the document hasn't been doing what we've been doing. This document?
As far as we know, we're not official until you guys.
Yeah, so our current process and our current policy is that it's not actually, I guess, ratified until there's a resolution by council, which is a little bit clunky, and it relies on you folks having that last sort of, I guess, call on who we may hire.
Well, why the change, like, why now, why is that a bad thing, I guess is the question. Like, why, besides being is it sort of new, like, it's put in there for a reason, probably 7 million years ago, and that could be the main reason why it shouldn't be in there, but hypothetically, what is the negative of the way we do it? That it has to be changed, besides, like, is it done any damage that we need to change it?
Most of it, if it's, obviously in the request for decision, but a lot of it is just to try to avoid the politicization of hiring people. Whether it's unintended or not, whenever we have a body of politically elected officials making a final decision on hiring beyond the ones that are legislatively required, it adds that extra element of legal risk that we kind of spoke to last month about that to some extent. So the biggest part is just trying to realign with the modernization of the Local Governance Act and what it's suggesting, you as council should be responsible for, and what it's suggesting I as your one employee am responsible for. So that's just where we're trying to put those back into those lanes, because legislation has changed over time. This is certainly was a practice of many municipalities way back when, and especially smaller ones with less capacity, less internal capability of staff to make some of these decisions. But I believe we've evolved beyond that as a group now. And there are other tangible things like timing and just risk of losing people because we might negotiate that we're agreeable to you coming on board, but if I then have to wait for 3 weeks to make it rock solid, we are now seeing people.
Has that been an issue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we've lost people as a result of saying, yeah, I'll come, and then a week later, they're like, I got another job offer, and they're prepared to take.
Well, and I guess I can see your point, but I mean, this is different than typical business. You're not like a company that has that kind of been a way that you can hire and close and close things quickly. Being a municipality, we have so for lack of a better word, a different system. Now, I guess I understand that there's been changes to this, and all the other municipalities are not doing it, and it's sort of the way it's evolved. That's one thing, but I also know that we're different than a company when, in a sense that, we were hired and voted on and to be here by people that are outside this building. So when you look at all the final decisions and stuff, that's sort of, for lack of a better word, the nature of the beast is like a board of directors in a company, you know, it's almost like saying, okay, we don't want to go through the board of directors after we make these decisions. And that may be the way it's always done. I don't know. It's just that I guess, one, if it's not broke, why fix it if it's not caused any issues? And two, is the reasons to doing it is because it's evolved differently. Because I guess I looked at what we do here a little different than the typical company, and that the fact that it goes through the councils that everyone voted to put in there as a final say. I've yet to ever be part of a challenge of anybody that's been accepted. I'm totally confident in the process of where they're done. I've never been in a situation where I felt like I had to hear who it is to see if it's okay. I've been more part of the situation where, oh, I'm glad to hear, I'm informed, and now I know who my new human resource person is. I never looked at it as something that I had particularly a veto vote for. So I guess I never looked at it as something that could do that. But at the same time, I just think the process works that way because of the way we run our business. And I don't know, it just feels like one less thing that the councilors are part of. And I guess I don't understand the difference, the change of it. Now, besides the efficiency, which makes sense, or if we don't do it that way anymore, I guess there's a debate for that, but yeah, I just thought we do it this way because it's all part of the big picture. And as a person sitting here and my time and stuff, those things kind of come across the plate, I look at it as something I'm privy to and now part of, and then spread that, say that on to the people that go at the end. That's kind of the sense, but.
I guess the other piece too that I just wanted to share was that separation of the governance and the administration.
Yes, that's part
preached by all local government departments through orientation. I mean, Councillor Grant, you probably just came from that orientation where they talk about that separation, and we do it for, like I said, we do it for the summer students. And you know, all we're asking for is that opportunity. I know in fact, in speaking to some of our recent hires, it's a very unnerving process to know that you politically have to go through the hiring process after you've negotiated a contract. And then you might have to wait 3 weeks and wait to see. Well, I understand we've never denied anybody, we never have.
They don't.
It's still involving your elected politicians, like for all of you that work for the province of New Brunswick. Your MLA is not putting their hand up whether you get hired or not. I mean, that's the best I could equate it to.
And some boards, for example, yes, there's that, you've been on boards, but those boards are not politically, voted in, right? So, I mean, you might sit on a board and yes, board has certain responsibilities, but they didn't have to go through a political election, so we're trying to make sure that doesn't become problematic. It hasn't here yet, but it certainly has in other places in the past. And we don't necessarily feel like it's impending, but at the same time, we're also trying to de-risk that from, let's say there is that one time you, for some reason, decide to not approve a hire. Well, we're gonna be in trouble if that happens.
What do you mean? How?
Because we've already negotiated a contract with somebody based on a process for which you've approved, but we know in this day and age that I can't be like, yeah, I want to hire you, but you're just gonna have to hold on for 3 weeks. I can't give you anything official until council approves it. So we've had to take ownership of that risk and say, yeah, we're negotiating, whether it be vacation time, salary, all those things, benefits. And then be like, okay, so will that work? You're gonna say yes, okay now, but one of the conditions is it's still subject to approval of a political body, which does put.
Yeah, I'm missing the whole point of the political concept. When I think of a board director, I'm thinking that their acknowledgement of their partake in the board is just as just as much of a stake maker as we are on this board. So I don't understand that, you know, except for the people, they either meant to be there or not. So I don't understand the difference between a good old fashioned board of directors and the fact that we, as a board, would politically have some negative undertones, because I think the board of directors are in it for themselves too, in it for the big picture, or in it for the company, or in it for that. So I guess I've never seen the difference between the two. But yeah, I just feel that there's a role that we play here, and if we have something that sort of keeps us rolling as a team to go towards it, and every time we turn around, there's something else the councilors are not gonna be involved in. I think it may change the concept of what the council's jobs are gonna be eventually. That's my feeling. I felt that for a while here, but I get the efficiency.
Really clear that this has never been your job, it's my job.
No, I understand that.
So we're not trying to take anything away, and it certainly would not preclude me from informing you of who we've hired. You know, some of the processes, of course, you approve the policy as far as our process for hiring. That is your job, but who we hire is supposed to be my job.
And yeah, which is, and I don't think I'm debating that. I'm just debating the role that we play seems to be getting significantly changed and smaller. That at one point, what is the point of the council? That's all. Don't get me wrong, I totally understand the efficiency of negotiating somebody and making it efficient. And I think what Cindy's point about the division between the rules that we gotta do for the bylaws and is different than what we do here. I mean, I understand the division between the two, but I don't know, it's just one more thing that councils are not involved. So, although I know you're saying you're gonna tell us.
Absolutely, and there's still the most senior appointments, the most critical positions, still require that we get council authorization. We're just talking about a welder position that we have right now. John wouldn't, after going through our processes aren't changing. It's just that ratification by council, taking the political side out of it and keeping it in administration. It's the only real area that council gets involved in that could cause some jeopardy or liability.
Yeah, I do see I don't wanna say risk, I don't think it's the right word, but. It is odd today, in today's age, the way things work, the politicians are making that final decision, that is not normal at this point, like it was. I understand, and I do think being informed about who they are, and having that background and that discussion are important, but with, not to say that we couldn't. We've never denied one, and I mean, I haven't been here that long, especially for another. I don't foresee in most cases that happening. There's definitely good discussion that happens in closed, because those things happen in closed. But I do feel like it's not necessary. We pay somebody to do this job, and information is nice, but we're growing to the point in the next 10 years where it's not a viable thing. Once we hit that 15 to 20,000 population, we've outgrown that anyway, right? You can't micromanage the smaller, I don't say smaller, that's not the right term again, not to discredit any employee who's not at a managerial level, but what I mean is your ground level techs and things that are doing that day-to-day work. I have no knowledge of what that individual does for their job. I don't even want to pretend like I do. I trust the people who run the interviews, that run the departments, and the one employee we hire whose job it is to really does that job. And I don't think it looks good. The politicians, like the neighborhood person who got elected, their names get attached to it, and it just doesn't. It always is the opportunity for reeking of just that. Oh well, he made sure so and so got hired because he's buddies with him, and that's their kid. It probably had nothing to do with it. But there's just that opportunity, and it's not really ever made an impact in the past. I don't know why it needs to keep happening. I know that's not everybody's view, but I don't see it as being a leverage role. I know you mentioned, fewer involvements in the day-to-day. I don't think that's the kind of involvement we need to be involved in. There's other things that we should be involved in rather than the hiring of the beginning level, entry level employees for the town.
I guess my thoughts, I never felt like we had to finally say that we, you know, you said, well, the final stamp's on us. I guess I've never looked at that way. I've always looked at, you guys did your job. Oh, and here's behind, say yes, and we all move forward. The idea of vetoing any process that has ever been done is never crossed my mind. Because I know it's done, right, so I guess that's what I kind of point of view, sorry.
Councilor Brad.
I guess for me, the biggest concern I have with the whole thing is that if there's a talented individual out there and we can't scoop them up, or we are at risk of losing them because of a delay, that's concerning for me, because I think we want the best candidates that we possibly get. So I feel like that time frame is concerning if we're looking at trying to bring in the best people. I think the original intent of why this was a council decision might be the thing that I think people are worried about, if I'm hearing everybody correctly. So I'm wondering, where does that lie? If the original intent is so that, you know, my uncle doesn't get the job or whatever, and if there's some improper movement there, what does that exposure then fall on you and we come after you? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100. Like I own that accountability that, you know, if I hire someone that reeks really badly of nepotism or any wrongdoing, that you have the full right and responsibility to take me to task for that, for sure. That is your absolute right and job in my mind. Not to say that that's ever going to happen in my mind, but yes, for sure, yes.
So I think the statements were made a few times that it's nobody's ever denied it, which isn't exactly a strong argument to keep it, right? Because we're not, if we're having this rule and never having denied it. So I guess for me, I want to make sure that for maximum efficiency and able to scoop up talented individuals, and if that's what we're being asked to do to make that kind of thing happen. But I guess for me, I would like to be clear on the reason and the original intent of why that was there in the first place. And does that live anywhere in an official capacity?
I think, if I could go back, under the municipality, it wasn't uncommon because we didn't have the CAO structure.
Right.
Originally with the town, we had a board of governors, and then we went from that to having a clerk. And so in that case, but in all common practices with the CAO, and even with having a CAO bylaw, it says that, you know, those are the responsibilities, and there is that division between the governance piece and the administration piece.
So I guess to rephrase my question, I guess, if there was reason, the original intent for that to exist in the first place, for the council to be able to make that determination, and we're saying there was probably a good reason for that to have happening. If that responsibility now falls under that umbrella, or that's where it should be, is that in the official capacity? I think you're a nice guy, I think you're gonna make a mistake, but that's not always gonna be necessarily the case. And is there anything that we can look at as a council to say, here's where we went wrong, right? Right now, you're saying it won't happen, but right now you're a nice guy, so you probably won't. But what happens if you're not?
Yeah.
We're not here.
Is there something that we can do?
You
Is
can
there-
hire
Yeah, I
somebody
would be
else.
able to point at something to say, here's where it went wrong. Is that under an ethical type of thing, or where would?
It could be, right? It could be. It depends what the scenario is. For certain, there's been CAOs who've been asked to leave based on ethical decisions, based on all kinds of things, which is definitely within your realm and your right to challenge, should that be the case of me. But not necessarily of anyone else, right? Now, you might say, hey, how did that person hire that person? That's of me to find out and challenge that, but generally speaking, what we want to make sure that you're comfortable with is the policy and the guidelines for which we hire those people, or I operate under and task them to do, because that's your opportunity to have say in, are we tight in that process? Do you want to see something else in the process? Is there more explanation that's needed to make sure that you're comfortable with the policy in the approval of that policy? And that's where you would gain your input there. It's like, if we only have 3 steps in our policy and you want 5, then our job to create 2 more steps to your liking so that, you know, now I know I have my marching orders and my task staff to abide by those orders that you bring. So, yeah, I mean, historically, there was a change. I mean, I'm gonna say 2018, when we flipped from Municipalities Act to Local Governance Act, and there was a requirement then to create a CAO bylaw to make sure that there was that distinction. That's really when that took its own shape from historical, where you may not have had a CAO in the current form. And so, that's where now, you know, you've had that bylaw in place for, you know, almost a decade now. And so my job is to work within that bylaw as well. And right now, it's saying I have the responsibility of hiring people, but it's conflicting with this policy.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, your worship. And I apologize for not being up on my current reading of local government plans. Who are the statutory officers in the act? Says that we would still be involved with approving statutory officers. I assume that's you and.
Usually, so
It's a clerk.
clerk, it can be, your legal counsel, your accountant.
Town engineer.
Engineer,
have an-
if you have an engineer, yeah,
Fire chief? No, the fire chief is not named, but could,
I'm just picking up titles.
yeah, like I believe when we. Here when Jody was. Named fire chief, but I believe that at the time there was a representative. of
Anyway,
the
I don't
council on
know,
fire.
so there's still be some.
There is a list.
Trying to do a line there.
there is a very specific list that indicates who the
I know,
officers
and
are.
then just add to the historical thing, I think all this goes back to before there was enough staff at town councils to do things. Councilors are much more involved in the running of the business.
Yeah,
Now that now that we're running multi-million-dollar corporations, I think the positions have probably evolved to, councilors don't do that. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
yeah, and again, it never,
But you're right, if you screw it up, was you ready?
yeah. Yeah, I own
I
that.
won't put the motion forward tonight, but.
Okay, Councilor Mooney.
Thank you, Worship. I purposely didn't talk first because I wanted to hear what other people were going to say.
Oh, we know.
You know what, I'm really thinking. I do appreciate some of the initial questioning that Councillor Murdoch had. The line that Councillor Carr went down about neighborhood councillors having nepotism, I would flip that argument the same could happen. If it was the other seats and it was that. I like the line of questioning Councillor Grattan went down because that was kind of the kind of asked, who would I hold accountable if something happened? And of course, the answer would be the CAO. And let me preface my comments by saying I have absolute trust in our CAO. I have zero quandary or concern there. But he's not always going to be in that same. There will be another one. And so I have always looked at this as a safeguard, whereas it has been expressed that this kind of antiquated system does not exist anymore, and it actually does. I sit on a board for which I am the one responsible to hire other people. But I also know that my decisions are also up for final approval by a larger board. And I like that because I'm always in the position where I have to be able to justify that, yes, I follow the rubric, yes, I follow whatever. What is the reason why you blank, blank, blank? So to me, having a balance and check in the system is not a bad thing. I am persuaded slightly by the efficiency thing. I 100% acknowledge the efficiency thing, and I do understand that. I also know that if it's absolutely urgent that someone has an answer within 2 days, special meetings of council can be called. That's happened numerous times within my time on council. I would also say that once the policy is changed, if you do get yourself in a position for which you're going to have, again, we're not talking about who's current, we're talking about the system, not the people per se. If you do get yourself in a position where you start encountering difficulties with, let's say, a CAO that wants to hire the cousin, the nephew, the this, the that. And then, as Councillor Grattan said, we hold them accountable. But what does that look like? I believe I remember saying, and I believe I remember hearing at a meeting not a whole long time ago that it's actually not possible for council to get rid of the CAO. Under extreme, unless it was extreme.
You've been taking pictures, right? Good girl.
But am I not?
No, you're not.
People that remember, okay, that comment was actually said to us.
Yeah.
In not too long ago. So what I'm saying is if you have someone who is in that position, who is in that kind of lane, there is no real accountability. Once we change this policy, because we've set that completely within their purview. To me, if there is some sort of, what I've always seen as council safeguard there, is that it does give us the opportunity, if the policy is not changed, to actually have some accountability to the CAO that we would not have otherwise. We have never had to exercise that because we've had great people. And not just our current, but previous. But what I'm saying is if you go back in history, I'm sure there would be times in which people would say, ooh, and they were glad they had those opportunities. So I 100% understand the argument of efficiency. I get it. And from that lens, I would support it. And I did have a conversation this afternoon with the CAO in more detail, and I'm not going to repeat all of that. So one side of me does want to support it, but from the side of it being a safeguard for which exists in a very high level organization that I'm involved in otherwise, and it has existed in that organization for years. And it works very well. And so that is the reason why I am not super persuaded to support that change. Thank you.
If I could just add one more thing for council's consideration, is we do have a bylaw. We have a municipal bylaw that is the CAO bylaw that directs specifically the responsibilities of the CAO. So we're talking about a policy change, but the bylaw would actually supersede any policy that council has set.
So what you mean is it's already.
What I'm
done?
saying is,
It's already being done.
Bodie agreed to the CAO bylaw that we had to do as part of the Local Governance Act, in which he has that authority and responsibility for the hiring and the personnel matters. That if, it ever came down to it, somebody could argue and say, well, council didn't have the authority to say no to my hiring because it's the CAO's decision. And you hold the CAO accountable because you have one employee. Just another factor to consider.
What actually just makes the whole conversation.
Council Trent.
Probably eager to have process happens, that I've been part of it, but I'm assuming council appoints the CAO or hires the CAO. So that was check and balance. You pick the right person to do the job. So it happened to step forward. Maybe you're not gonna get what you thought you were getting, maybe the people that apply, you pick the best from the pool. But that was that initial check. I do get it. And I think the organization you're referring to doesn't equate to the same thing as this, but And I do understand, I do like the idea of checks and balances, I think they're fantastic, they're needed, but. I just, yeah, at this level, I think hopefully the due diligence is done to get to the level of being a CAO of a town this size or an organization this size. Hopefully that work is done in advance. I'm sure there's been experiences in the past where that hasn't worked out so well for places, maybe here, I wasn't here. And I know councils change, and when you retire, you know, people and all those things, I just, yeah, I still feel like I'm on the other side, but I do appreciate the check and balance idea. I mean, it is good. I just, again, the efficiency and just the level of trust and just, I don't see the absolute need for this step at this point anyway.
Councilman.
I had concluded my thought, but it's directly on what you just said. That is also something that I had considered. You look at the number of municipalities that get themselves in issues all across the country. I don't think any of those municipalities hired people knowing that in advance. They all emerged after the fact, right? So again, it's just that once you give away your check and balance system, it's then gone.
This check prevention, this other things goes on.
Councilor Murdoch.
Oh, my phone said bedtime. All I want to say is it sort of felt like it's gotten in the specific direction of John and the noose around your neck. But I wanted to make it perfectly clear, my thoughts about this is, and Councilman Mooney said it a lot better than I did. It's not about you or what we're doing of accountability, and quite honestly, listen to Cindy's new point, it kind of makes the whole conversation kind of moot if it's already been, it's rectified in a different direction, so we'll kind of take it out of our hands anyway. It's not about that, it's not about you and not holding accountable, like it was purely about being part of a system, being part of a process that seems to got everyone's back and supports it, and you know, checks and balances, all that stuff, which makes us just run efficiently. Now, having said that, I'm also with Councilor Grattan that I don't like the idea that it's not efficient and people waiting. But I also think that could be something that could be tweaked a little bit differently too. Only because the fact that when a person applies for a job at a municipal building and they know that it's got a council, when they got this and they that, and all that's disclosed at the beginning, they have to come in with the mindset that I'm applying for this job, I'm gonna negotiate this, and maybe somewhere in the negotiation, council could be bought into sooner, I don't know, that it's not hanging over the head that all of a sudden the suppliers are gonna wait 3 weeks and then get another job. I assume they know all this coming into it. When you're applying for something like this kind of a organization, they should already know that. But I just want to be clear, this is not about you not doing what you do. Never. I have complete faith to the point where, yeah, that's great, as long as John never retires or leaves or goes someplace. Because, yeah, you just never know what you're into. There's a part of me that gets the idea, and Councilor Carr's point about an efficiency of a big organization, and we are getting bigger, and a lot of the little town stuff that I've been sort of lucky to be privy of, and Cindy's been, been doing the thing, it has changed. It's a lot of these things are going to the wayside, so I'm not necessarily, I totally understand the mindset of that, that it's a bigger system and, the efficiency of being in charge of what you want to do and hire this, that, whatever. I think that it's all of, I think confidence is 100% there. I just didn't like the idea that we didn't have that team camaraderie where we all come together to hire somebody, because that's the way it's done, and we have the support of everyone. And that's the part that's all the other stuff, it's not about that debate. It's not about any of that stuff. And I just wanted to be clear that that wasn't my point. My point was being part of the process, because that's what I signed on for. That's it.
Well, on John's behalf, he's not the only one that there's usually a hiring board.
Oh, no, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's never been about the efficiency of the system. It's about including us in the decisions of the system. It's always been my thoughts.
Well, but that's the downfall, because if they have to wait for council, it could be 2
Well, again,
weeks.
if you are applying for a town and you're told that this is how it works, I'm finding it hard to believe that most people, if they want the job, that's gonna be good. If they leave, trust me when I tell you, they left for other reasons. Sometimes it's better.
Councilor Kirkbride.
Thank you, worship. I've listened to everything too, and the time thing with the waiting. With today's technology, we can have a Zoom meeting the very next day, 4 o'clock, because that does count as a meeting, it's not an email, according to what Cindy said earlier. And in that process, we would need 4 plus you or 5 counselors to join a Zoom meeting, it could be done like that, so to me, the time thing isn't an issue. Not anymore, not with today's technology, because I mean, we have counselors. I mean, he did it from Latvia for goodness sakes. So that to me isn't an issue, the time and the waiting, that's not an issue. I completely agree with Councilor Murdoch, I like being part of the call letter process, I really do. And I also agree with Councilor Mooney in the whole checks and balances thing. Because again, you may not always be in that chair, and I know there is a committee, but we have a hiring committee to see who's on, like, and I'm all free, didn't, you know, I like that, I like being part of the process, like Councilor Murdoch said, so. And, but to me, the time issue, like waiting anymore for 2 or 3 weeks is not an issue. Now, with today's technology, and this meeting can be done.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I have been involved in a lot of boards and things and where there have been issues with CAOs and whatnot. But everybody has to be accountable, some of it. And I think the issue that we had when we talked about CAO not being, you can't, I think it's one of this, you can't get rid of them without cause. I think it was one of those, I can, most people can be fired. You get it done, here's a settlement, go away. The CAO, a couple other different ones, you have to have cause.
I'm gonna fire you.
No, that's what, you can't get rid of, we can get rid of it, you have to.
Yes.
But the other thing is, if it's all about accountability, I think our staff, we can take as a council to put in accountability mileposts within a 4-year term of accounting. For example, all employees in the town go through an employee phase, they go through an annual performance review. I don't think I'd be saying, I was stepping out of bounds saying that there's no reason why we couldn't have some sort of checks and balances for the CAO's position, reporting back to council with mileposts and it's basically a performance review. If that's an issue, and actually for a while, I've been thinking, probably at least once during a 4-year council's term, there should be a review, not only for our benefit, but for his benefit, and the next person's benefit, the next person's benefit. I know I was worked for a company for 42 years, and when I retired, I had 12 annual performance reviews in my file. Annual, there's 12, then I had 42, so, you know, I know it becomes a process when it's just check the box to get it done. A lot of places it turns into that, but I mean, I think it's about accountability. I think there are ways we can build more accountability in this, because he has one big accountability, we have a budget every year. He has to deliver on the budget. And, you know, so that's one good milepost right there, but I mean, and I have no problem being taken out of the hiring process. I really don't think it's our job. In the modern day world, modern corporation, I don't think it's council's job to hire people. Nothing personal against people, you know, I've been involved with both. I've been involved with, you know, having to make up a reason to hire, to trying to get rid of people. Well, we'd have no way to get rid of that person. What do you mean we don't? Well, we don't have any policy, we don't have any mileposts, we don't have any cards. So I think those things can be done if that's the issue, but I certainly have no problem being taken out of the.
Well, I guess the only thing we can do is vote.
So we get rid of John, I lost track.
So how many are for getting rid of council's decision on hire?
We have everybody's attention.
So how many are for that?
Changing, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but yeah, Brad saying yes.
But.
Who's all for changing it to the new color?
Yeah, so how many, put your hands up again, guys, so what's it, we'll change
To
it?
bring forward the resolution
yeah,
on
for the
Thursday
change.
night for consideration.
Well, if we're voting on it Thursday, why are we voting in?
A little bit more than fuzzy.
Oh, what we're voting on is whether or not we were prepared to bring forward the resolution on Thursday night.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
well,
I have 5. So,
well, for bringing.
so that's the answer. Bringing it forward. Okay. Now we'll move down to 5I, and it's the 2027 budget preparation, and CEO has that, unless we're gonna vote again.
Is he still working? I just wanna know where is he still working?
I'm gonna keep going until somebody shows me the door. Yeah, no, thank you, your worship. This is as per the memo that was provided in the council package. We're really just gearing up for our annual budget preparation. So we're just trying to let council know some of that purpose, what the budget environment, we spoke a little bit about that in terms of our presentation earlier tonight, the 5-year plan and some of the potential impacts. But really what I wanted to make sure everybody had an idea is how we're gonna move through and task the department heads with the budgets, and then just to ensure that councils had an opportunity to look at the dates. Because I would like to roll that to staff, if you're okay with the dates that have been provided, and if you are, and there's no, like, I'm on vacation or a conflict, we'll also make sure that Cynthia places those dates in your calendars as placeholders sometimes.
I'm not gonna get with the 27th, but. This should change, but I won't be there. No reason, I just don't put the calendar, just that's.
So the dates are on page 106, so.
So right now, we do have, one counselor not available on
And
27th.
that's the only thing we're there for, except for the public things, if you wanna be, right?
Yeah, so that would be the one that we would do that evening where all the department heads come in and
And
present.
the other dates for the public and all that stuff, the councils can be there for that part.
Correct. Yeah,
I think it was just that.
so we can either, if that's okay with your worship, we can either have that date, cause we still have a quorum. Or we can consider an alternative date, but admittedly, it gets hard that time of year to find an alternative date that fits not only staff, but you folks alike, cause that's, essentially about 20 people that I'm trying to organize on money.
That's 27th, right?
27th, yeah.
So. Is everybody warm and fuzzy on the 27th, except for Councillor Murdoch?
27th of October, right?
Correct. That would be,
What day was it?
it's a Tuesday evening.
Okay.
So that will be presenting then to the schedule further on from 5 to 9. You have different folks coming in to give their budget presentation to. Chinese food, we'll do our best.
Well, there's one win. And the beat's coming in on Saturday and Sundays, like we used to.
Yeah.
I started at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Last year was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good process.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we're warm and fuzzy, sounds good? Okay. All right.
That's great, your worship. That's the main thing I need, and to make sure it's good, and you'll see those calendar invites pop up in your respective calendars within the next probably 2 or 3 days. Just so you don't forget about it or schedule something else on those.
Well, it's not on my birthday anyway.
Yeah, perfect.
Mine's the 28th.
I made sure of that.
Thank you. Yeah. We're now moved down to the appointment of an auditor. Who's got that? Oh, Peter?
Yeah.
The next couple of your worship councillors.
Okay, you got both.
The next couple is fairly straightforward. This one is appointment of councillors of our annual 2026 budget, 2026 audit. That will come out in December, then through February, March, April next year. So we wanted to point he's probably going to making our audits for the last 2 years. Yeah, we made the switch from grants order a number of years ago, say that's the only, we're getting better, what I consider to be better service, so I really like these guys. And so it's just been guys that have come. So I just put forth and recommend partnerships auditors for 2027.
So that's warm and fuzzy. Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, worship. Not to be a nosy partner, but what was the amount of the tender? Was there a bid?
We didn't go to tender this year, they gave us a quote, which was 1% one of the bid last year. The initial grant order number was $7,000. They looked at the $7,000. They went up to 45, 46.
Or the only reason I asked is this is the first time we've been asked to approve a non-number.
Yeah, that's true.
Just says it's within the budget of $60,000. Are we giving a contract for 20,000 or for 60,000?
We could.
That's not what it reads. Says it's within the budgeted amount of $60,000.
Oh, yeah. you don't
So
actually know.
what it is, your worship, we have a budget. We have a line item in our current year budget for 60,000. Which they're saying 40 something and change, so we're well within our.
I know, cause I know with auditors, there's a base amount, then depending how many times you go to them, there's additional charges and all, so you can't nail them. Not just, it's the first time we were asked to not have a number, so I didn't know if that was 10,000 or 59,000. So it's 45,000 roughly.
Yeah, let's say.
Okay. So not cool, that's all.
It's, we've got a
We'll be
little bit
watching
of
for
room
that.
in there to be able to operate with and still maintain.
I don't care who we hire, but I like the numbers.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So that's warm and fuzzy then? All right, we'll go to 5K, the climate lens assessment feasibility study, and Peter has that.
This stemmed from the an FCM funding application we received. It's a project for $250,000. We received funding for $250,000. So as part of this funding arrangement, we have to take a feasibility study. And so we're going to go through with the execution of this study with WSP. $42,000. So spend some money to complete their allocation.
Bottom line, we're coming out ahead.
Well, exactly.
So
Lead with that.
is that warm and fuzzy, council?
Woman, that's
Perfect.
thanks, Steve.
All right. On that note, I'll call for a mover for adjournment. Councilor Kirkbride, seconder, Councilor Carter, questions, all in favor? Contrary, motion carried. Take a 5-minute